Hello, hello, hello. So, this episode is going to be a bit different from what I normally do. Yeah. So, a few days ago, on the 1st of November, the first of the month to be exact, the Rawpod turned one. Can you imagine that? This podcast that started as an idea, like every other podcast does, is now a year old. And I I honestly I can't believe it. I didn't think I'd make it to a year. And we are one, guys. We are 1 year old. We are one. And I'm so grateful. I'm excited for what the future has in store. And this is just an episode to sort of like recap how the past year has been. Um, to, of course, thank you, the listener, for always being there since day one, and to just share my hopes for the future of this platform. Yeah. But first of all, before I get into that, I know it's been a while. I know you've missed my voice. Well, of course you have. I mean, if you haven't, then are you really part of the Rawpod gang? Are you really keeping it real and raw? If you haven't missed this voice, I don't think so. But yeah, I'm still working on the Finger of God series. I have not forgotten. Episode 9 is still in the pipeline, still in the works. Part 2 of the Finger of God series is still in the works. Don't give up. It's quite a heavy episode. That's why it's taken me months to work on it. But it'll be out eventually. It'll be out. You know, it's a really heavy episode. It has a lot of information. Sometimes as I'm doing my research, I'm just like, I have to pause. I have to really pause and just think and be like, oh, whoa, that's a lot of information to take in. But yeah, we'll get there. We'll finish, put it out, you listen, and yeah, life goes on. But we're not here to talk about the Finger of God saga and Quincy Timberlake and the Starungi and all that. I just want to reflect on what this podcast turning one means for me, for you, for all of us. And like I said before, also thank you and see what's in store. So, this past year has been a journey. What a journey. I remember when I first had the idea for this podcast. It's one of those things that just came as a eureka moment, the aha moment in your mind when the light bulb goes on in your head. That's kind of like how I was feeling when I started this podcast. And something you might not know is uh before the very first episode of the Rawpod went up, it had taken me a year to work on it. For the first episode to go up, it was a year in the making. Because this idea was conceived around 2021, um, late 2021, August, September there. And I kind of danced with the idea for a while, the what ifs. What if people don't like it? What if, it's too new of a concept for people? Will they understand what I'm trying to do? Will they see my vision? I had those questions. I had those questions. Then I decided, fuck it. We do this thing. So then came the idea for the first episode. And I was like, yeah, this, by the way, this is something. I even shared how the idea for the first episode came about. So if you're new here, the first episode is called Churchill Show, No Longer a Laughing Matter. And when you listen to that episode, this is also me telling you to go listen to that episode. When you listen to that episode, I actually share how the idea of the episode came about. So yeah, I started working on episode 1, started doing the research. This is in 2021, September, October there. So I started doing my research. I researched. And then by the time 2022 was starting, I think I had already finished. I don't think I was finished. Had I finished? No, I don't think I was done. I think I was still scripting, though I had taken a bit of a break early last year because I was interning. So it was taking up a lot of my time. I was in an internship whereby I had to be there like fully. So I had taken a bit of a break from the whole working on the very, very first episode of the Rawpod. So because the internship was intense, it needed me to be fully present, and nilichukua ka break because yeah, it was quite something, that internship. So if you're wondering what, I know you might be wondering, where is this place she was interning at? Fine, I'll let you know, even though it's none of your business. So I was interning at the Standard. At the time, I was a reporter, and I was actually a print reporter. So yeah, if you know, you know. If you've worked at a newsroom, and a Kenyan one at that, it is not easy. The newsroom is a place that is like a jungle. Everything is moving so fast because it's news, and news goes stale very fast. So you always have to be moving fast. Otherwise, it becomes irrelevant in very few seconds. Now add to that the digital space and how it's so easy to, consume news, and also you can even be a newsmaker and, contribute to the process of news by virtue of citizen journalism. So yeah, things are always moving so fast. So you need to be on your toes 24/7. And for me to be able to do that, for me to be able to achieve that, I needed to be fully present. I needed to give my all. I needed to give a lot of my time and energy into that internship. Yeah. So I kind of took a break from working on the first episode. I would, whenever I had the time, I'd work on it. Kidogo kidogo tu, ile tu, leo ka paragraph kamoja, ka sentence kamoja. If you're a writer like me, you know that there are days where you can only write one sentence, literally the whole day. All you've managed to do is come up with a sentence. On a good day, a paragraph. On a beautiful day, probably a page or two. So yeah, whenever I had the time, whenever I had the energy, I would, I'd work on something. So I did it. The internship was for 6 months. So for those 6 months, it was just me, working on the episodes tu kidogo kidogo tu, pole pole tu. Yeah. So I finally finished scripting. I read through it. I was satisfied with my work, and I decided, you know what, it's time to record. So I did just that. I recorded. Then once that was done, I edited. And then once that was done, I was now like, I'm about to post this thing. Now that was the moment of truth. That was the moment where I was like, wow. So you are really going to go into this world of, number one, content creation, number two, podcasting. So you're really going to step into this world. Because, this is the thing with stepping into this space. You are now entering a realm or a place where people will now be having access to your voice on the regular. You're entering into a new world, basically. It's like movies. When we start movies, the main character is always, in the normal world. We call it what do we call it? There's a term for that. There's a term for that normal world. Anyway, yeah, the setup, in short. So the main character is always in the normal world. That's where you find them, unless ni zile movies za kwanza out of chronological order. But if it's a movie that starts in the normal chronological order of things, the main character will always be in their normal world, their ordinary world. And then something happens and they step into a new world. Either they lose someone or they lose something, or something happens to them that will now force them to enter into this new world to either, get that thing back or become something else in the process, or both. So that's the same way I was feeling in that moment when it was now time to post, to hit publish. I had done everything. I had the idea. I had scripted, recorded, edited, created, and set up my Anchor account. At the time, it was known as Anchor. Squeezy inaitwa Spotify for podcasters. I don't know why the sudden rebrand, but I don't mind because they gave me a free notebook. But yeah, now you've gone through all that. And now it's time to post. It's now time to enter into the world of content creation and podcasting. And I just felt like, I'm entering into a portal. In movies, how you're like, the main character is on the other side of the world, the normal world, and then they have to enter through this car portal, especially for sci-fi movies. They have to enter through this car portal to go into that other car world to either save who, return, get something and come back with it. Yeah, that's how I was feeling that moment. And I just hit publish. I clicked publish, and yeah, the episode went up. And yes, I was now officially a podcaster. And I was just like, wow, okay, this is new. This is okay, I'm really doing this. This is not a drill. It's happening. I'm actually doing this. I'm actually putting my voice out there for people to listen to. Wow. Okay. It took some time for me to process that and to let that sink in. And yeah, it just, it now became something that I was now indebted to, something that I was supposed to keep doing. And came the second episode. And what I really loved about making the very, very first episode of the Rawpod is that I had so much time to just get everything right and to research. Because let me tell you, the challenges of this content creation thing is consistency. And consistency, that's hard, especially if you have a 9 to 5. Like for me, I have a 9 to 5. So being consistent is very, extremely difficult, because 9 to 5s suck the life out of you, such that by the time you get home, you really have to force yourself to do a basic thing like even shower, because of how tired you are. The whole day you've been running up and down like a headless chicken trying to get things done. So unafika kwa nyumba and it's just like, hey, I just want to lay down. That's really difficult. It's been really difficult after the first episode to be consistent because of my 9 to 5. And sometimes I run out of ideas and it's like, what is going to be the next episode for, this podcast of mine? So that's how it was like for the second and third episodes. Like I I had no idea what to do for an episode. I had no idea. So those two episodes were just like, woo, ile tu like last minute rush. It was just very, very last minute, those two episodes. Because at the time, I remember I really had no idea what I'm going to do. So I just started thinking, like, nitafanya nini, That's why actually they're quite short. They're among the shortest. Kwanza episode 2. Episode 2 is like the shortest episode overall. Yeah. That's why they are the way they are. They're quite short because I really had no clue what I would do. Especially for episode 2. Episode 2 was really, yeah, a spur of the moment thing. It was a very last minute rush kind of episode. Then came episode 4, which I'd say is one of my favorite episodes. Episode 4, The Rise and Fall of Extiandela. It was one of my favorite episodes to work on. I enjoyed it. I don't know. I really enjoyed that episode because it felt like, I think it was, I don't know, I like that episode a lot. I guess because it was almost like the documentary style of narration or narrative. And I liked it. I enjoyed working on it. It's one of those episodes where I look back and I'm like, I really enjoyed working on this episode. Yeah. And yeah, came the 5th episode, Now, for the fifth episode, the fifth was where I, because I usually script, because of the nature of the Rawpod, this is a podcast that relies heavily on research. Lazima ni research. I can't just go and start speaking ovyo. I have to research, I have to analyze, I have to prepare, my arguments. I have to come with nuance. Because, like I said, in the very first episode, in the intro of this podcast, I said that this is a space for nuance, meaning open perspectives, just different and diverse perspectives, seeing things in different points of views. So in order for that to happen, I have to really research and analyze and, prepare. Yeah. But for this particular episode where I critiqued the Disconnect movie, I did research, but I didn't script because the rest of the episodes are scripted because of, like I explained, the nature of this podcast. So I have to script in order for my ideas and arguments to flow and to be understood. I have to script. But for episode 5, where I critiqued the Disconnect in Kenyan film, that's the name of the episode, lol, where I critiqued the Disconnect movie, it was just me with my 2 notes and speaking. This was the episode that I did not at all script. It was just me, my notes and my thoughts, checking my notes for reference and, saying what I thought. So yeah, and it's also the longest episode. It's 50 freaking minutes. Almost an hour. Yeah, because I didn't script. Because usually when I script, I will always make sure it's, edited in a way for time, this as I write. But here I was just speaking and going and going and going and speaking and going, and I just liked what I really liked about this episode is how raw it was. No pun intended. And I'm not saying these other episodes are not raw. They are very much raw. They are, because I do be speaking my mind on this podcast. But just the way I was speaking my mind as is at that time, yeah, I liked this episode because it was just me and my thoughts and my 2 notes there. And then came episode 6, where I was looking at Kenyan cancel culture and how a joke it is. It's still a joke because, if we were serious, then I believe our government would be functional. But anyways, yeah. This was also a nice episode, yeah. It's not one of my favorites like episode 4, but it wasn't all that bad. Yeah. I'm glad, but what I really liked about this episode is that I was able to offer a new perspective to the listener. Because I remember receiving a comment where someone was like, "Hey, by the way, thank you so much for opening my eyes. I didn't think of things like this." And that's one of the things that keeps me going. It's why I do what I do. When I'm able to open someone's mind up and help you see something from a different perspective and a different lens, I feel like I've done my job. If I'm able to positively impact you as the listener and help you expand your opinions and expand your perspectives, then for me, even if it's just one person, that means a lot. It means the world. It means that someone out there is listening and taking heed to what I'm saying and actually being transformed through what I'm saying. And it means the world. Um, those comments, they mean the world to me, and they really keep me going. They really do. They really, 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 really do. And then came episode 7, which was Everybody Hates Aziad. I love, love the title of this episode. I'm not going to explain where I got this title from. It's for you to find out. It's for you to find out. But I really loved the title of this episode. And this episode was actually a filler episode. It's the first filler episode because at the time I was working on the very first part of the Finger of God saga. And because this is a very, very serious topic with a lot of subject matter, I decided that I don't leave my fans hanging. I don't leave the Rawpod gang hungry. Let me give them something to, kutuliza masikio wakingoja hiyo episode ingine. So this was just to, calm you guys down, to just give you something to keep you busy as you wait for what I was actually working on. And yeah, it was the first filler episode. Then from there is when came now the latest episode, which is The Finger of God. And this episode is up there with the rise and fall of Extendella, because I really, really, I enjoyed working on this episode. Shout out to a lady on Instagram known as Juliet Noakes. She is the one who actually gave me this topic as an idea. Yeah, so shout out to you, Juliet. I hope you will keep keeping it real and raw. And thank you so much for this idea, because if it weren't for you, I don't think we'd have this episode. So thank you so much for that, and keep tuning in. So this episode was one of the most challenging ones I've had to work on. It was heavy. It's something that deals with sensitive, subject matter. And you want to get things right. You want to get your sources right. You want to get your facts right. You just want to get things right, because, hey, things can easily go left. And I do not like spreading misinformation. That is not cool. It's unethical as a journalist to even do that. I mean, and to purposefully do that. Yeah, no. So you want to get everything right and to not mess up. Yeah. This was a very challenging episode to work on. It was a lot. Like I said before, sometimes I'd read stuff and pause and just be like, wait, what the actual hell am I actually reading? Is this even real? So yeah, it was heavy. It was a very, very heavy episode. It still is heavy because I am still working on it, but I just hope and pray that, I'll do my best and that you will enjoy it. I really, really want you to enjoy it the same way you enjoyed this one. And what I really, really loved about while working on this episode is the interviews. I love a good interview, especially when I'm the one to ask the questions. There's something just so fulfilling and just so fun about engaging someone and poking their brains for insight and information and expertise and experience. It's beautiful. I love it. It's just so good. And I really, really enjoyed interviewing my sources for this episode. It was fun. I felt so alive. I felt like, yes, I am actually doing something worthwhile. I'm actually in my purpose. I I loved it. I did. I loved it. The interviews, I loved it. The research, nostalgic. The nostalgia that was hitting me when I was doing this episode, because when this story came out, I was 10. I was very, very young. I was a kid, but I was in tune with what was with current events and what was happening around me at the time. And I remember, because at the time, um, the internet wasn't what it is now. So you kind of just went with what the news told you. When the news says this, that Kina Esther Arunga have been arrested because of this and that, you consume that and you internalize that, because you don't really have any other means to, go find out information for yourself. But now, more than 10 years later, now as an adult, now that I actually can do the research and get the information for myself and see things through an adult lens, I am now seeing things that I never saw at the time, things that we were never told as the public when this happened. Yeah, but the nostalgia, oh my God, the nostalgia, it hit me when I was doing this. I'd read something and I'm like, yeah, I'm instantly transported to where I was and who I was when I first heard of this story. The nostalgia while working on this episode is so real. Like, yeah. But all in all, like, I really loved working on this episode. Shout out to you, Grace Kerongo and John Girashu, my very, very good interviewees. They really came through during this episode. If it weren't for them, I don't even know how this episode would have been. And thank you so much. And yeah, I hope you'll tune in for part 2, because that's going to be quite a roller coaster. That much I can tell you. It's going to be quite a roller coaster. So it's been a nice year. This podcast has opened me up to so many things, opportunities. I've met so many new people because of this podcast, and I'm really grateful for that. And yeah, I'm really just so grateful for all the people that I've been able to meet just because of this podcast. I mean, who knew? Who knew? And I'm really just grateful to you, the listener. Thank you so much for listening. Before I even go into that, wow, I just like to share a few lessons that I have learned this past year. The first is just, it sounds cliche, but just start. Whatever idea you have in your mind, just start, just do it. It may not make sense at first, but don't be so quick to write yourself off just because it doesn't make sense right away. Just start doing it. It will make sense as you go along. It will. And you will find people who will help you make sense of what you're doing. So don't be so quick to write yourself off just because what you have in mind does not make sense right away. Just start. You never know where it could take you. And something else I've also learned is staying true to yourself. Yeah, staying true to yourself. It's really important, because I feel like people will gravitate towards you. Your people will find you. They always do. So just, stay true to yourself. Don't try to be like the next person, because it probably won't, work out. I'm not saying you shouldn't be inspired by someone, Inspiration is key. Inspiration is good. It's healthy. It's great. But just don't outrightly just copy and paste. You can always be inspired by someone, take what they're doing and find a way to modify it. I mean, there's nothing new under the sun, but you can always modify something and probably create something new. Even what I'm doing, I don't think it's new. It's not. Yeah. And what else have I learned? I've learned that I probably need to invest more in this platform in terms of equipment. I mean, start with what you have by all means, but investing, and I talked about this in the Everybody Hates Aziad episode, it really goes a long way, and I'm really seeing that every day. So, yeah, invest, my guy. Invest, invest, invest. Lessons. Is there anything else I've really learned? Well, nothing else comes to mind. But yeah, those are my main takeaways. So I really, really hope to see that this podcast will create positive impact in the years to come. I hope that it'll help people just to be able to see more sides to things and to see that things are not always in black and white. Sometimes there are gray areas. Actually, a lot of times there are gray areas, that things are complex, issues are complex. It's not just this or that. There's that gray area that you need to, look into, you need to discuss. And I really just hope the conversations that happen here are changing someone, like beyond just you getting entertained. I hope you get entertained, by the way, because if you're not getting entertained, then I don't know, you might be in the wrong place. Are you not entertained? Anyway, but aside from the entertainment part of it, I just really hope that the conversations here will reach more people and create a positive impact. Yeah, that it'll help someone somewhere to have a mind shift and to expand their thinking and just have a diverse outlook towards life and things that happen around us. Yeah, I really do hope that this will grow beyond me, honestly. And I just hope that this will be a place people can also come back to, a reference point for conversations and stuff like that, stuff that happens in the future. People will be able to come back and be like, yeah, this. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, I hope this can be a place where discussions will serve as a reference point for future events. People can always come back and refer to the conversations that we have here and try to relate it to what's currently happening. And I really just want to say thank you. Thank you for a wonderful year. Thank you to you, the listener. Thank you for tuning in, taking time at 2 p.m. on a random Thursday to just listen to this podcast and comment. For those who comment, thank you. For those who share this podcast, thank you. For those who leave positive messages, shout out to you, one Jerian on Instagram. Huwa unanijengea siku with your positive messages and uplifting comments. Shout out to you, Hazel. You know yourself. A very big supporter since day one. Thank you for the positivity that you radiate. And thank you. Just thank you so much. This means a lot. Those comments, they mean a lot. I read them and I understand that, yeah, what I'm doing is not in vain. What I'm doing sees zero work, that there's somebody somewhere who's actually being impacted by what I'm doing. And I just thank you so much, the Rawpod gang, for always keeping it real and raw for this 1 year. And thank you even to the interviewees. Thank you so much. You guys helped out a lot. And yeah, thank you even to the silent listeners, because I know you're there. I know you exist. But thank you nevertheless. I mean, you take your time to listen to what I have to say. And yeah, thank you for lending me your ears. And I just hope and pray that we will continue to walk together in this journey, and that we'll continue to, have these conversations and discourses and build a community. I really, really love that, for this to be a community. But all in all, thank you so, so much. And tune in, keep tuning in. And let's keep keeping it real and raw right here on the Rawpod with me, Renee Were.